What's going on, everyone? Art from Overtake here, and today I wanted to start filming on the first video of what I think is going to be a really fun series. Now, I just so happen to have this JDM EJ255 Subaru turbo engine that I need to do a refresh on. I pulled this out of a perfectly running car, but this is a 25-plus-year-old engine and it needs a lot of love. You can see it's really crusty, there's a lot of dust and dirt, a lot of stuff leaks on this thing, and it's all factory as of right now. Now, what occurred to me is there's tons of content all over social media, especially from shops that build high horsepower engines. And while that stuff is really fun to look at, it's not the typical build that an average Subaru enthusiast like myself or you guys are going to be doing. And in this series, we're going to be doing a little bit of a budget build. We're not doing every single aftermarket part that we absolutely can and going for high horsepower. What we're doing is a reliable, nice looking refresh build with a mix of aftermarket parts, ton of Overtake stuff in particular, and OEM components. Now, the interchangeability of these engines is really one of the things that makes them so popular. Whether you have an EJ205, a 255, a 257, pretty much all these components are the same. You're gonna have different internal displacements, but we're not gonna be going as far as tearing the short block apart. We're gonna take all of this stuff off, we're gonna take the heads off, do head gaskets, reassemble it, do timing belt, water pump, and then everything back together. So we're gonna do a majority of the work. And I'm not gonna go step by step into every single thing or give you torque specs on everything, but what I wanna do is give you the confidence that you guys can do the same exact thing. Now, I'm in a shop, but you guys can do this in a garage. I'd be doing the same thing out of my garage as well. So what I think we should do first in this video is just go around the engine and point out the major components for those that don't know. There's a lot of stuff that makes up an EJ engine that's a little bit different than what you would call a typical combustion engine in a different car. So why don't you guys come on over, we'll start with the top and work our way down. Up here is your top mount intercooler, and connected to it is the bypass valve. Connected to that is the bypass valve recirculation hose, which snakes underneath this coupler that connects to your throttle body. Now, right here in red is your intake manifold. Then you have your TGVs on either side and your TGV sensors right there. You can see there's a wiring harness that's connected throughout. And then right here, some fueling components, including the fuel filter, a couple hoses that run to the car, and then they turn into hard lines that snake under the intake manifold. Then I pass by your turbo inlet right here, a post-MAF hose, then a coolant expansion tank hooked on right there. As we move down to the front of the engine, we have our crank pulley, and then we have 3 timing belt covers right there. Underneath it is the timing belt, idler pulleys, tensioner, water pump. We'll get to all that stuff as soon as we pull that off. And down here, you have an exhaust manifold with a collector on either side and a cross pipe right in the middle. And if I turn the engine, then we get to see the backside of the intercooler. So you have a Y pipe with an elbow connection to your turbocharger, which is just right here. There's a factory heat shield that's shielding that. And then you have your internal wastegate right there. On the bottom side, the up pipe that connects to one of the exhaust manifold collectors. And then typically, if you have a manual car, you would have a flywheel here. You can see I don't have that because this came out of an auto, and one of the catalysts for rebuilding this engine and putting it back in the car is a manual swap. So one of the last things we're gonna do is put a flywheel back on this. So those are the major components of an EJ Subaru engine. Why don't we, before we start pulling it apart, talk about some tricks and tips that I have before we loosen the first bolt. I have no idea what your personal experience is when it comes to taking out and rebuilding Subaru engines. Some of you, I'm sure, have never done it before, so hopefully this video encourages you. Some of you might be experts. If you work at a shop, you might go through a couple of these engines a day and could probably do it with your eyes closed. I'm somewhere in the middle. I've done a couple of rebuilds myself with success, and so I want to share some tips that helped me along the way. And when the engine was in the car, I made sure to take a couple of photos of it, but more importantly, once it was out, I just went around and took photos of everything. That way, you have something to go back to. There's no reason you can't have 50 photos hanging out for the next couple of months in your phone as a reference guide. Now, the other thing is little tags like these that you could pick up at a grocery store, at Target, really help for labeling things like the wiring harness, so you know exactly where stuff goes. Some of you might not need that, but that is something that helps me along the way. Now, something that's gonna help everyone is you're gonna end up with about 1,000 bolts after you're all done. So I recommend going to the dollar store and picking up a bunch of cheapo Ziploc bags like these. And as you start taking bolts off, let's say the throttle body, put them in there, and then with a Sharpie, just write throttle body, throw it all in the same box, and then you know you're never gonna lose the bolt. Now, the other big thing that helps me in terms of organization with an engine rebuild is having separate boxes like replace and upgrade, clean and keep, and powder coat or paint. So in other words, when we start taking components off, like the top mount intercooler, we know exactly where to put it, and there's no confusion with what our next steps are gonna be. In this case, I'm gonna pull this off, get it put in the replace and upgrade bin, and eventually, I don't have the intercooler yet because the OVERTAKE top mount is in development. As soon as that's done, that's gonna replace this particular component. So what I'm gonna do is go around and just start taking off the large parts that I know, and then organizing them according to what's gonna happen. There you have it. The upper part of the intake manifold is off. Now you can see the powder coat is starting to chip on this. I'm actually pretty surprised for the age of this engine and how much abuse it's seen. It's holding up pretty good. So if you didn't want to spend the money to repowder coat it, you could clean this up, make it a little nicer. But I'm going to put it into our powder coat or paint box right there. I'll eventually disassemble all the little bolts and nuts and send it off to powder coat. Now you guys can see under here, just everything opened up. Now technically you could have taken the manifold along with the TGVs and the fueling and all the wiring off together. We're going to be doing a little bit of test fitting on some development products, so I had to take the upper off. But you can kind of see the crusty gaskets that have been on here since stock. Obviously we're tossing those. And then the TGVs right here with the little flapper pieces, I'm going to be deleting those out, and I'll show you guys in a different episode what that's all about if you've never seen a TGV delete. So next steps for me are going to be stepping back, letting the engineers do their thing, and then when I come back on camera, I'm going to be pulling off this fueling assembly that we're likely going to replace, and the wiring harness that we're certainly going to clean up with all of the connectors that I've marked, some of which broke off on the way out that we're going to need to fix. And eventually we're going to be down to the long block by the end of this episode. I think I'm gonna wrap it up for the day, and this is probably gonna be a good end to the first video in the series. You guys can see we got a lot done. We got the whole top side of our long block off and disassembled into its appropriate boxes. That way I know what to do with it in the coming weeks. This was a great opportunity for me to check the condition of this engine, replace some of those 25-year-old components like gaskets. All this hardware is going to get replaced, and obviously everything is going to get either cleaned up or repainted. It's going to look really pretty coming back together. Now, I also managed to get the underside, the exhaust manifold off, and for an engine of its age, it's actually looking pretty clean. It's a great candidate for what we're doing here, a refresh and a mild rebuild. Now, in the next episode, you guys can expect me to break into the front end of this engine, getting that pulley off, exposing all the timing belt stuff, seeing what condition that's in, and then we're going to be tearing that apart, and hopefully by the end of episode 2, we're going to have the heads off of this thing. So if you guys have watched this far, I want to thank you. You could do me a huge favor by liking our page, subscribing, of course, and also jumping down in the comments and telling me about projects you guys have done on your Subaru engines. Maybe you're working on something right now. I'd be curious to hear what you're going through as well. So thanks again for watching. We'll catch you at episode number 2.